What are the country's top CEOs doing to build extraordinary teams and cultures who thrive even during a pandemic? You're about to take a deep dive into the minds of wildly successful C-suite leaders who are evolving the way that we work in the 21st century. Welcome to this special edition of How to Be Mesmerizing.
Hey everybody, welcome to How to Be Mesmerizing. It's Tim Shurr, and in our special Mesmerizing CEO Secrets series, we have another extraordinary CEO and president with us today. Greg Massey is on the show. Greg, welcome to the program.
Great to be here.
Oh, it's so exciting to have you. So Greg is president and CEO of First United Bank. And I got to read this part because you have a long list of accolades. But in 2008, Ernst & Young named Greg their Southwest Region Entrepreneur of the Year. And Oklahoma State University has recognized you as a distinguished alumni. And the Spears School of Business recognized you as the top 100 graduates and inducted him into the Business School Hall of Fame. So you have quite an impressive list of accomplishments. So I'm super excited to dive into that brilliant mind of yours today.
Good to be here. I tell you, it's one of the great things about being a leader of a great company. I always tell our staff when some of those things that have came about, it's all because of them. But because I'm the leader, I get some kind of trophy or something. But it's the trophy really is part of our culture and the people that are here and really have made a difference in the community and the lives of our customers.
So you can tell everybody that's watching and listening to this that Greg walks the talk because the very first thing he did was give the credit to his team, which is impressive, right? That's what visionary leaders do, right? So I love that. Now, it's kind of interesting because you run a very large organization, right? And so with that, it's amazing how you view yourself as a community builder and how you care so deeply for the people that you're working with and for the people that you serve. And you don't always get that in an organization that is very focused on making money and being profitable. So how did that happen where you found yourself being at the top of the food chain, so to speak, and with a huge driving mission of bettering the lives of those that are in your sphere of influence?
Always, what's the intention? What's your intent, or what's your purpose of the organization? So we talk about it internally as how do we inspire and empower others to spend life wisely, and when we did that, the others is all of our stakeholders. So you think about how do we inspire and empower employees? How do we inspire and empower our customers? How do we inspire and empower our communities? All of our relationships, and of course, one of those is being our stockholders as well. But we really focus on each one of those stakeholders, and we always say every decision we make in the company, it's got to be a win-win situation for every stakeholder every time. And so having that balanced approach has allowed us to really focus on the experience of our customers, our experience of our employees. And we always say if we can make those experiences really good, the experience of the stockholder will be good as well. But it has to start there with our customers and our employees.
Yeah, absolutely. There's an old phrase that the customer is always right, but if it's at the expense of your employees, right, then it shifts the dynamic. So your employees are your number one customer first, right? Your internal customers, taking care of them, helping them feel valued. And then they will share that with everybody that they are taking care of. So I love that. Yeah. How you said that you want to create a win-win situation every single time. Is that possible?
Well, it's always balance, right? So, I remember my father used to say that our loan customers always want to rate below what we can give them. Our savings customers want to rate above what we can give them. Our employees want a salary above what we can afford to give them. And our stockholders want a return higher than we can give them. And our job as leaders is to balance all that and do what's right.
And how do you figure out what's right?
I think there's just I hate to say logical common sense of that, but people they're always pressuring you. And I used to literally get sick every December. That's when we'd set about 35% of our salaries for the next year would be in December, and I'd literally get sick because I loved our employees so much. I wanted to give so much back to them, but I knew my budget could only afford so much, right? So you're balancing. Hey, here's my budget. Here's what I can afford to give them. And here's what they deserve. They always deserve more than I could afford, right? And so it's always this balance of what can you afford versus what you can give. And so that would be no different from a customer perspective as well. I would love to give you a better rate, but I can't afford to do that if I'm going to pay my employees, right? And so it's always, you got to always say that's an example of the mathematical equation. But I think any other role and responsibility you have with leadership, you have that same balance. It's also taking the long game versus the short game. And so we always think, hey, how are we better off for the future for this customer, for this employee? If we play this out 10, 20, 30 years, what does this look like as well? And also from that perspective, that allows you to I think, come up with a better solution.
That is very smart, because a lot of companies, and especially in high pressure situations, are looking for the quick fixes instead of the long-term, solutions that are going to add value and make people feel more secure and create stronger engagement. Because many companies that do the short game have problems with turnover.
It's interesting. We're in the finance business. The compounding is a lot like a logical thing for us to talk about, right? But compounding the decisions of our lives are just as impactful as compounding maybe a savings rate for our future.
Oh, that is awesome. I love that.
So you think about like if I get up tomorrow morning and I pray and do my Bible study, it's going to affect me. But if I do that year after year after year versus if I don't do that year after year after year, the compounding of either one of those decisions is huge when you wake up 10 years. No difference than if I'm saving $100 a month in 10 years. What does that look like versus tomorrow?
That gave me chills. I love that. I wrote it down. That is really a wonderful way of looking at it. Compound interest for your life. That's really good. So you say you love your people, and I know that's true. If you're a leader and you're listening to this, or you're watching this interview, and how do they love their people, or what's an appropriate way? How do you express that affection for people? And what if you run a huge organization? You have thousands of employees. So how do you make sure that everybody all the way down the line is feeling that, as opposed to just maybe your executive team?
Well, I think there's multiple things that you have to do from a culture perspective, and we're a big believer in just living our values. And as we started growing the company 15 years ago, we said, hey, what are our values? What do we really care about? And then how do we actually live them out? We center our values around love and impact. So under the love value, we actually have faith as one of those, family and integrity. And then under the impact side, we talk about how do we actually have high performance underneath teamwork and relationships. And so as we kind of think through the values, and then how do you actually you make them repetitive? So an example that every week, we send out a letter to every employee in the bank regarding our purpose and values. Every meeting in the company starts out with purpose and values. And so I think you just got to, continue to talk about them. And then things start happening. So good example of that, one of my great stories, Tim, is, so one of our values is faith. And so we say, hey, we're going to put God first, our family second, and our work third. And that's just part of our culture, been part of our culture forever. And so we had a lady in Pauls Valley, Oklahoma, come through the drive-through, and she's crying. And the lady that's waiting on her said, "Are you okay?" She goes, "No, I'm really not. I just found out I have cancer."
Ooh.
And she said, "I'm so sorry to hear that." And she drops the microphone, walks, shuts her cash drawer, walks out to the drive-through in the middle of the traffic, goes over to the window of the lady's car and prays for her for healing.
Oh gosh. Whew.
So I called her. I said, "This, thank you for, I heard what happened." So I just said, "Thank you," and she said, "Greg, thank you for allowing me to be who God created." Number two is, just so you know, I'm a cancer survivor, and I know what it means for other people to actually pray for you.
Wow. Well, and we're going to have to end our interview because I don't know how we're going to be able to shortest interview ever, because I don't know where to go from there. That was wow.
But that's what happens whenever you starting to talk about your values in the first of every meeting. That's how you get them off the wall into practice, and people start living them out.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've facilitated many redesigns for company cultures, and people always ask, how do you make this something that shows up every day and how people live? And the answer I've always given is you have to always be talking about it. It has to be a part of the conversation in every conversation. You indoctrinate people into this philosophy and this set of values by immersing them in it and then walking the talk. And then just every day in how you show up and the words you choose to use, your values should be a part of that. And then it's not just a piece of paper on the wall that nobody really pays attention to. It comes out in acts, like that beautiful story that you just shared, Greg.
We were the other day. I was we were needing to hire a new leader in the company on the banking side, and so there was a lot of conversation in the company about this new leader, what I'd go out and hire. And so Melissa, who helps me with all my communications, I called her. I said, "You got to help me write this because we need to." And we literally went through our values and said, we're going to hire a person, of faith. We're going to hire a person that's, that of family. We're going to hire a person. And we literally went through and described the person we were looking for underneath our values. I'm like, I always tell our hiring managers that we're going to hire people that based on our values. Why am I any different? If I'm hiring an executive, they got to look like that as well.
Yes. Most importantly.
Yeah.
I mean, whenever I've worked with a company before, I always say, we need to start with your leadership team or your executive team. Yep. And I have had leaders that said, no, we don't really need that. We just want you to focus on our employees. And I'm like, with that attitude, you need it more than ever.
Exactly right.
Yeah. And so, because people model their leaders. Yeah. And so, so that's very powerful. And I love that you shared that. Just the intentionality of not just can the person do the job, but what kind of character does that person have? And then, interviewing them through your values. I think that's just so powerful, because if they have the right values, often the people can be taught the right job. Right. But if they struggle with the values part, it really doesn't matter. And that's been tough for companies too. You might have it always seems to be your number one salesperson who is just awesome, or the person that is like your favorite when it comes to being on your executive team, but they're causing so much stress with the culture where they're not living the values, and they're having such a negative impact that they need to go.
We thought it was important when we did our values, and this came out during our conversations 15 years ago, was high performance being part of the values. Mm-hmm. Because they got to be part of faith and family and integrity, but they also got to perform well, right? Sure. And so that's actually when you're trying to hire someone, you're trying, hey, not only do you have to live, you got to live all the values, and because we would at one time. That's when we actually put love and impact into the values, because we had people kind of hiding behind the values. Like, I don't have to be a high performer because because of faith and family. Mm-hmm. Well, no, that's not true. You got to be a high performer too. And then the opposite. The people, the folks that are here on this side didn't want to be on this side. It's like, no, you got to do both. You got to perform because we want to make impact in the lives of our community members, in our communities, and we're going to do it the right way. So it's like this, both and versus one versus the other. That's
beautiful. I mean, that's the idea. Who is your ideal person that you want to work with? Who is your ideal person that you want to be a stakeholder or a shareholder, your customer and your employee, right? So that's what I was doing when looking for amazing people to interview. I mean, we're talking about love and faith, but you also run a $12 billion organization, right? So.
And people love, I always, I think folks get confused. People love working hard. They hate working in circles.
Yeah, well said.
And so as we continue to recreate the organization and progress the organization forward, we talk a lot about the employee experience to allow them to, whatever they're working on, be able to get it done. And not create bureaucracies. And so when we talk about empowerment, we saw inspire and empower our employees is one of those, right? So we think about an organization that allows 99% of all decisions to be made within the person the customer's talking to.
Whoa, can you repeat that, please?
So we want to empower employees to make decisions. So we want 99% of all decisions to be made with whoever that customer is talking to. And so by empowering that, they're not working in circles. I don't have to go to my boss and he goes to his boss and he goes to his boss. And see, at the same time, and what's interesting, we didn't realize when we started down this empowerment model as a company, also, the other side of empowerment is responsibility. And not everybody wants responsibility. So we figured out not everybody wants to actually go to work for us because, we're going to give you a lot of rope and you get to swing and go and run and make decisions, which is, people, that's the company I want to work for. But do you really want to take that? That takes on some responsibility if I make decisions. And so we found out over time that it actually takes the right type of cultural fit that wants to be empowered, that wants to take that responsibility. But when you find them, our customers love us because they get, it's just like a little bitty small company. I call someone, I get a decision. I call someone, I get a decision. And that's the whole part of the whole empowerment dynamic, is allowing people to actually flourish as human beings. That's
incredible. So how many people do you have in your organization?
Today, about 1,800-ish, 1,850.
So a leader's listening and they're like, we got 1,800 people and they're all making decisions. That could lead to some problems. What would you say to that?
Oh, you'll love life. I remember when, it's like all problems. So I remember when we really moved the company from a more model of where I think I made every decision to where I make no decisions. All I can tell you is I don't have, my phone's not on silent right now.
That's great. That's great. Mine is.
I forgot to do that, and no one's called me. So
right, that's amazing.
My phone's not on forward, and so no one's called me. So I'm not. I don't. I can remember when we were a $1 billion bank, and I'd leave work and have 30 to 40 phone calls I had not made yet because I was trying to make every decision.
Yeah.
And all I can say is I'm happier, my customers happier, and my employees are happier.
Oh, that's just brilliant. So brilliant. So one of the ways that you as a visionary are thinking, how can I take it to the next level? How can I really develop my communities around me? Because you obviously have branches in different locations, is to develop your own academy, and you have this philosophy of how do you spend life wisely? So let's talk about that first. What do you mean when you say, how do you spend life wisely?
Sure. Life is all about making choices in the moment. And how do I make the right choice in this moment? And so, it could be dinner time tonight with my family, and just making the choice to go home and make sure I had dinner with all my kids tonight. And we pray before the dinner. It's just simple stuff. This morning, I actually had a little wreck this weekend. I was trying to drive a little scooter thing with my son. And so I got a little shoulder problem. And so I've got a little pain in the shoulder, but, I made a decision this morning when I woke up, I went and got on my Peloton anyway. Right.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about, spending life wisely, we talk about, how do we spend life wisely? We actually have four pillars. We talk about faith. We talk about personal development. We talk about just wellness. And then we also talk about financial wellness. And so those are the four pillars of spend life wisely. And then we do things underneath that to make that come alive for our employees and our customers. And so when you come into any of our community locations, we give books away under all four pillars. And so as an example, there's online as well. But what we did, we started seeing was we had commercial customers coming to us and say, "Hey, we want some of that. What you have, we want. What is it? How were you able to put faith in the middle of your company? How were you able to put personal development in the middle of your company? How were you able to scale and grow the organization over time?" And so, by the way, when I got here in 1990, we had about 30 employees, about 100 million in assets. So significant growth over the last 31 years.
Yeah.
So when you do that, people will say, okay, what's this all about? And then there's the other side of us that said, if we could take the top 5 to 10 businesses in every community we are in and allow them to become a healing organization. Because part of this thing that we're doing over here with Spend Life Wisely is actually creating a healing organization. So if I go to work and I become a better human being when I leave every day, I actually had impact to my family and to my community. And so if we're able to do that and create healing organizations and the top 10 businesses in every community, we actually change that community forever. And so what we're trying to do with the Spend Life Wisely Academy is teach leaders how to build healing organizations. And that is, helping them find their purpose of the organization, help show them how to go create values that fit the organization, how to actually build a strategy that they can execute that makes sense for that business. And then how do we actually scale and grow it and have all the tentacles of conscious capitalism?
Wow. So good. I mean, it's just brilliant, right? Talk about going to work and feeling fulfilled and having purpose and being able to realize what a difference you're making in your community and at home. So many people feel like they've got to wear two hats. They go to work and they have to show up one way, and then they come home and they have to show up a different way. And you're saying, no, let's create an authentic life where we feel truly healed and we can show up in wherever we are, adding value and having faith and pouring into people and lifting others up and catching others doing things right instead of this cancel culture that we find ourselves in. And it's really great. And then I love the idea of then pouring into your top 10 most successful businesses. And because I know I've spoken at secret groups, of business owners and leaders in the community who are quietly coming together and figuring out how to transform their community or how to buy certain buildings and make them look beautiful so that families want to stay and grow up and live in that community. And they're not doing it for the notoriety. In fact, it's very secret most of the time,
And Tim, what we're finding through this, which is a side benefit, is just these leaders, you're finding these like-minded leaders in the communities. And then they start on this journey together.
Yeah.
Right. And then they're sharing, and after we'll do a few classes with them, then they'll stay together and fellowship and say, okay, I tried this and this worked for me, but then I tried this and this didn't work. So they're actually learning and growing and developing together and building these deeper relationships. And my belief is long term, the community will really benefit from that in other ways that we can't even imagine yet.
Oh, yeah, for sure. In that classic book by Napoleon Hill called Think and Grow Rich, where he interviewed all the hugely successful entrepreneurs and business leaders like Carnegie and Ford and Rockefeller. And they said out of all the characteristics, the only one that every one of them shared was that they were all part of some kind of mastermind group.
Yeah.
Or all some part of some kind of fellowship where they were together, supporting and being there and being able to be honest, and share what's really going on and share their wisdom and get that support and camaraderie. Yeah. So I love that you're expanding that, for other businesses and other communities and for everybody in your company. So you're putting together this academy now. And with the How Do You Spend Your Life Wisely Academy, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that's what we were really talking about, was just how the academy would connect, and so that the classes that we created really are centered around those aspects of running your business. So it's, how do you scale? How do you not bring purpose? How does my company have a higher purpose? And not how do we have leadership, but how do we have conscious leadership inside my company? And so it's like, it's taking everything and just moving it up a notch, right? Mm-hmm. It's one thing to have a purpose, but it's another thing to have a higher purpose. Ooh. It's one thing to have leadership, but to have conscious leadership. Yeah. Right. And those two things by themselves do so much. And then really think through, who are my stakeholders? I mean, almost every company has employees. Almost every company has customers. Everybody has stockholders, right? But is community. How are you going? Do you have vendors or suppliers or partners? But we, in our business, we have so many partners that are that are true to our business. I couldn't be in the banking business without FDIC, right? I could not be in the mortgage business without Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. I could not be in the insurance agency business without certain insurance providers. So all those partnerships are so important to us. And then how do we actually treat them? How do we actually treat them as a partner versus a win-lose partnership where the only way I can actually win in this partnership if you lose, versus how do we come to each one of those partners and how do we always make it a win-win situation for everybody?
Yes, I find that a lot of amazing CEOs who are very people-centric and culture-oriented are always asking that question: how do I create win-win situations? What can we do to create synergy instead of compromise, so that people walk away from every relationship feeling like they got something good from it? And I love that distinction that you say about having the higher purpose, right? Because it's just more fulfilling, and you're always looking at how can we make it a little bit better. I mean, that's how always visionary leaders are always thinking, how can we make this even better? And how can we improve here and there?
We create a world-class leadership program inside our company, and and every time we, every year we have new people go through it, and every year someone will come to me and say, "Greg, I don't know if I'll be a better, president of a bank, community bank for you, or commercial bank, or whatever they might be, position they might be in, but I promise you, because I went through this, I'm going to be a better dad. I'm going to be a better husband. I'm going to be a better wife, etc." And of course, I'm back in my head going, it's all the same.
That's right.
Leadership is leadership, right? Being a great human being is being a great human being. I don't care if you're at home or at work or at a restaurant eating lunch. We're just human beings trying to have a human experience, and the higher level of consciousness we have, the better experience that we can give, not only ourselves but for others.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. There isn't a distinction, you're just showing up in all areas of your life, wearing that one hat, being kind and thoughtful and others focused, and, wanting to show up, adding value, and having more patience, being a better listener, assuming the best in others instead of the worst, and knowing our own value and our own worth, because I find that that's what holds people back more than anything else, is their own insecurities and doubts and fears that lead to the stress and the poor decision-making and things like that. So I love that you've built in a leadership training program. One of the best compliments I ever got was from a gentleman named Troy Hanna, who was a president of a company that I worked with for many years. And he said, "You didn't just make us a better company, you made us better people." And I always love the stories of people saying, "Yeah, I'm doing great at work, but I made up with my son's soccer coach. We used to butt heads, and after going through your training, I went up and we had a different kind of conversation, and now it's really fun and it's more relaxed at the games and everybody's getting more out of it." And that was always the stuff that lit me up, not, "Hey, I hit my numbers again."
Well, and I loved your words a minute ago, Tim. You shared was listening, right? So when we open our mind and really listen deeply. And when we open our heart, right, and we can actually listen with an empathetic heart, and have empathy towards another human being, and then open our will, right? So you open my heart, my mind, and my will, then thy will be done, not my will be done. But that only happens, if you can actually open all those up at the same time. And so many times in conversations, we're so locked into my belief or my stance or what I'm going to say next. So my mind's not open, right? Or all I care about is me, not you, right? So my heart's closed, right? But when all those, you just teach almost this ability to listen deeply, then things, you really start seeing things in the organization start moving and changing.
Oh boy, you hit that right on the head. That is so accurate. The most influential leaders aren't the best speakers, they're the best listeners.
Yeah.
And you can't learn if your mouth is moving. And we have the same.
That was a hard one for me too, but it's been a lifelong journey for,
Well, great leaders often tend to be a little older too, because we have life experience. We have a little more wisdom, and we've messed up a lot.
2-1, right?
That's right. 2 ears, 1 mouth. And so in that order, but it's so impactful because people, when you listen, they'll tell you the problem, but they'll also often give you the solution if you listen long enough. Absolutely. And you just set them up with a couple of good questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
it becomes theirs. Absolutely.
Well, yeah. And then people own it, because one of the things that I talk about all the time is that people support what they co-create. So if they feel like they're part of the conversation, or they're part of the improvement plan, or they're part of the committee, or they're part of whatever it is that they're doing, and they feel even the values, it's not just being handed down to them, that they feel like they're a part of helping to design it or helping to live it, that they will support it behind your back. And so there's so many ways. Warren Buffett once said that I'd rather learn from others than make their mistakes. And so, I love that you've built this into your company. The best companies I've ever been a part of or know of have training always going on, because that's how you keep the conversation going, and that's how you keep the listening going, and the ideas coming, and the innovation and creativity. And, every training is really designed to just continue the open conversation.
Well, and also creating a learning environment. It's the one thing to have a training organization, but, we talk a lot about internally about every person needs a Paul. So who are you learning from? And everybody needs a Timothy. Who are you teaching? Mm-hmm. And then, we had a leadership offsite last week, and we talked about who's on your personal board of directors. And it's really, do you have the right wisdom of people around you in different aspects of your life? And, and then who do you go to, when you have difficult situations, and do you have the right people that built around you? And so, so I always say we need multiple Pauls, and we need multiple Timothys that we're pouring into, and no company or community or family can really scale and grow and do what it needs to do in this world without that concept right there. In 2 Timothy, it's interesting, Paul's about to, be killed. And what's he do? He writes Timothy a letter about leadership. And here he is about to be killed. And he's still pouring into another human being. I mean, most of us be over there going, "Oh no, I'm about to be killed," versus I'm gonna go pour my last days here on earth. I'm gonna continue to pour myself into another person to continue my work after I'm gone.
That's deep insight, because one of the reasons I became just very successful at helping people to get rid of anxiety is because I had so much of it myself. And early on, sometimes the only way to control my anxiety was to add value for somebody else. So I'd find somebody else to pour into, someone else to help, someone else to take care of, and then I would feel a little bit more secure. And so, it's just sage advice, and I love that. I had heard that many years ago, but I forgot about it. And so I just love how you said that, Greg. Instead of a training organization, really strive to be a learning organization, where you're constantly learning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very powerful. Wow. Greg, this was just absolutely mesmerizing. I mean, I could talk with you all day long. So how can people learn a little bit more about your organization?
Probably the easiest way is just firstunitedbank.com and, our website, also spendlifewisely.com as well. And, or just give us a call. So the old-fashioned way. So all those things above, but we've got an amazing organization with a lot of just really wonderful people, and how we've all come together is just God's work, and so it's just love being part of the organization and trying to allow it to be shaped and me be shaped at the same time. So thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Brother Greg, thanks so much. I appreciate you being here today.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, it's Tim. You ever wonder why so many talented, hardworking entrepreneurs and business owners struggle with inconsistent self-belief or high stress or procrastination or self-sabotage? Well, the answer may surprise you, and the solution is already inside of you. I've been searching for the answers to this for decades, and I found them, and I put it into a new program called The Power of Your Unconscious Mind, Mental Secrets for Accelerating Success. And because you're a listener, I want to give you a free VIP copy. Head over to powermindsetprogram.com. That's powermindsetprogram.com and grab your copy today.